There are 2,250,141 reasons to watch this show. Social Security, here today, here tomorrow. Before we start our conversation today, there are certain things that you need to know. 2,250,411 people living in Michigan currently receive Social Security. That injects more than $60 billion into our economy. Another statistic, Social Security benefits in Michiganders pump at least $40 billion into the state economy every single year. That's why you want to stay tuned to this program and learn what you can do to make certain that Social Security is here today and Social Security is here tomorrow. And to have that conversation, to talk about that, we've got a very esteemed panel with us, and I'm just anxious, as you can tell, to get involved in this conversation with this panel. So why don't we go through and have you introduce yourself. Sadie, we'll start with you.
Sounds good. It's great to be here with all of you. My name is Sadie Shattuck. I'm 26 years old, and I'm the lead for AARP Michigan's Thought Leadership Council, and that's a group of young people who have come together to raise their voices and talk about issues that are important to them, like Social Security.
Thank you, Sadie. Glad that you're here. And we do want to hear from the younger folks as well. People think this is just an older adult issue, but it is not. It's an issue that impacts us, our children, and future generations. Max.
Well, I'm Max Richmond. I'm the president and CEO of the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare. I do want to make sure I acknowledge the valuable partnership with AARP to conduct these forums, especially here today in Michigan. Paula, thank you for all your help. This is the third of a series of forums we've held around the country. We were in Richmond, Virginia, Philadelphia, we'll be in Las Vegas, and Milwaukee this fall.
And you're not just doing this so you can travel. This is an important issue. So we want to make sure that people know and understand the complications and also what you can do to make certain that Social Security is here today and here tomorrow. You're no stranger to us.
No, I'm Vonda Van Till, and I'm a Regional Public Affairs Specialist for Social Security. I work for our Chicago Regional Public Affairs Office, but I've only been there for about 9 months. Prior to that, I was the Public Affairs Specialist for Michigan, and I've been with the agency for 32 years, and I'm just so happy to be back. You guys do such great work here, so thank you for having me.
Thank you. Vonda is sort of like the first person we call when we talk about Social Security. We've done teletown halls, we've done TV shows, so we appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
And then one of our newer volunteers, Frank, will you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Frank Weathers. I'm a new volunteer and just excited to be here, and like everybody in this room, concerned about Social Security and that it continues today and tomorrow and beyond.
Absolutely. And we also have with us a studio audience who you'll get a chance to see and hear questions from in just a moment. But I'd like to take a second also and thank the station because we have extended this program to an hour. Usually Real Possibilities is 30 minutes, and I know you always want more. Today, you're going to get more. So thanks to the stations for extending this for an hour. It just shows the importance of the topic. So let's get at it. National Committee to Protect Social Security and Medicare. What is it? Who is it? And what do you do? What's the purpose?
Well, the name says it all, the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare. That's what we do. We were founded 40 years ago by a former congressman by the name of James Roosevelt. He'd been a member of the House of Representatives and retired, was concerned about the future of a program that was very important to him, very personal to him, and he created the organization to preserve what he felt was his father's greatest legacy, and his father was President Roosevelt. So that was the origin of the organization. Medicare was added, and Medicaid was added to the portfolio soon after the organization was created. I've been the president and CEO of the organization for about 12 years, and we have committed ourselves to preserving, enhancing, protecting, and improving the Social Security program. That's our mission.
Wow. And so, by the way, folks, there's a QR code right on the screen. So if you want more in-depth information, just take your phone out. You all know how this works by now. Take your phone out and scan that QR code, and you'll go directly to their website and can get additional information. People don't often equate Medicare with Social Security. Talk about how those two intersect.
Well, Medicare and Social Security really work hand in glove. Social Security provides financial security. Medicare provides health security. You know, before the Medicare program, fewer than half of seniors had health insurance. Why? Insurance companies didn't want to provide health insurance, to offer it to older people because the risk was too high. And if they did offer it, the cost was prohibitive. So, you know, as I said, one of President Johnson's greatest legacies, in my opinion, was the creation of the Medicare program to provide that health security along with the financial security that Social Security provides.
So people often think that Social Security is going to just be gone if it's not funded, if it's not something that doesn't happen. What's going to happen? What's the longevity of the Social Security? And that's an important question because, again, you heard the number. 2,250,141 people want to know the answer to that.
Well, I wish I could tell you exactly what was going to happen and how it was going to happen. But it's important for people to understand, and this is really the purpose of the forums we've been holding around the country and will continue to hold, is to understand the value of the Social Security program, how it's important to seniors, yes, retirees, and to younger people. You know, we all know the term FICA, Federal Insurance Contribution Act. It funds old age survivor and disability programs. A third of Social Security benefits go to non-retired workers, spouses, survivors. Millions of children get by in life because Social Security is there for them in the event a working parent becomes disabled or dies young. So you're right, people often will discuss Social Security in terms of what's going to happen, what's the future. And there are a lot of misunderstandings, myths about Social Security, and I hope I'll have a chance to go over that. I consider myself the myth buster, the chief myth buster in these town hall meetings, because the misunderstandings and the myths that are perpetuated for decades now, I think undermine the confidence that people have in the future of Social Security. I hope we can talk about that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And speaking of that, about the children, the spouses, and Social Security being there for them, Vonda, what's the number one question you get? I mean, you have been 30 years?
32 years,
32
yes.
years. What's the number one question that people ask you about Social Security?
Well, that's a great question because, as Max just pointed out, Social Security is much more than retirement. You know, a lot of people think of us as being, you know, that benefit for those at retirement age, but we have the survivors, the disability, the auxiliary benefits. We also do a lot of work with enumeration. You know, that Social Security card is such a valuable piece, so people are always asking, you know, how do I get a replacement card? How do I change my name on my card? So we get a lot of questions about various benefits that we administer. But I was talking to my colleague Hillary on the way here, and I said, what would you say was the number one question that you've been getting from Social Security? And it was the same one that I was thinking, so I know we're on the same page. And the question we get most often is from individuals that just want to know, when do you think I should apply for retirement benefits? When should I start getting benefits? What's the best time to begin collecting that retirement benefit? And I wish I had a perfect answer. Oh, I can tell you exactly when you need to do it. But there is no perfect answer. You know, everybody's situation is different. We do, you know, provide the parameters, if you will. You know, age 62 is the minimum age for retirement, and age 70 would be the maximum age that one would want to wait. You won't want to wait beyond that, of course. And so you have all that point in between there, 62 to 70. And then, of course, you have to factor in, are you working? Because we have earnings limits. Medicare doesn't kick in until you're 65, so a lot of people have to continue working for the sole purpose of health insurance. So there's a lot of factors that one needs to think about when it comes to making that decision on when to begin collecting that retirement benefit. You know, your financial situation, your health. You know, it makes a lot of sense for someone to file at 62 if their health is not that great and they definitely feel like they need to start those benefits now. Whereas someone else who loves their job, they don't want to stop working, they can't see themselves retiring for a while, maybe they want to wait until they're 70, you know, and get the most they can from Social Security. Lots of different factors that one needs to think about when they're making that decision.
And the key word is think about.
Yes.
Start planning and thinking about exactly that. Absolutely. Do the homework, right?
Yes, do the homework.
So if someone's thinking about retiring, Max, will Social Security be there for them in 10, 11, 12, 15 years?
Well, that's really a good question.
Thank you.
The trustees of Social Security issue a report every spring, and the last one told us that the trust fund will run out of money in 2034. That date has fluctuated a little bit. It's gone up and down over the last few years, but that's pretty much been the baseline. Now, what does that mean? Some of I call them alarmists, will talk about that date and say Social Security will be broke, will be bankrupt. And when people hear that, they think, well, there's no money there won't be a program in 2034. That's not true. What will happen if no changes are made, and I'm lobbying, I know AARP is, and I'm confident there'll be some changes to stretch out that date. But if no changes are made in 2034, benefits will be cut by 20%.
Wow.
And that is unacceptable. I don't think any member of Congress would be able to justify that kind of action, a 20% cut.
Or hopefully get elected. So anyway, go ahead.
That's right. But you know, that's a very different proposition than saying the program is bankrupt, broke, won't exist. That has to be fixed. It's a huge task to come up with the plan to extend the solvency beyond 2034. But that's one of the myths that I've been trying to dispel at these town hall meetings. You know, we have to keep the problem in perspective. Mm-hmm. And as I said, it's an enormous task to stretch out that solvency date. But I'm confident that members of Congress, you mentioned how much the economy of this state depends on Social Security, and that's replicated throughout the country. Every congressional district, every state that has two U.S. senators will not want to see that that kind of reduction in benefits.
Absolutely. And we have a special video message from the interim commissioner of Social Security Administration, and we'll listen to that now.
In 2023, an average of almost 67 million Americans per month are receiving a Social Security benefit. A total of about $1.4 trillion in benefits will be paid during the year. I know many are worried about the future of Social Security's finances. So let me clear up one misunderstanding. Social Security will be there for you, your children, and your grandchildren too. As stated in our latest trustees report, the combined trust funds are projected to become depleted in 2034 if Congress takes no action. This does not mean Social Security benefits would end in 2034. It means that if no action is taken, there would be sufficient continuing payroll contributions to pay 80% of scheduled benefits. Of course, we would rather have 100%, and the trustees recommend that Congress address the projected shortfalls in a timely fashion to phase in necessary changes. With timely legislative action, Social Security can continue to pay 100% of scheduled benefits. Thank you for taking time to be part of this town hall and educating your friends and family, especially younger generations, about the value of Social Security. Take care.
So Sadie, you heard what Max said, you heard what the commissioner said. You're representing those who are under 30.
Yes.
And we've talked to a lot of you. We have our Thought Leadership Council, AARP, and we listen to the voices of young people because that's the future generation of leaders. We want to make certain that we also listen to them and think about, are we embracing the types of issues that are important to them? And when we've been out and about talking to young people, many of them say, just give me my money now. I don't trust the government. I can invest my own money. Yeah, right. I can invest my own money and get a greater return. Tell us a little bit about what you think and what you're hearing and what you've learned.
Yeah, so myself and the other members of the Thought Leadership Council through AARP, we reached out to our networks and we asked them, what do you think about Social Security? What do you hear about it? Do you think it'll be around when you retire? And actually, just reaching out to those groups, we found that like 70% of young people think that it will not be there for them when they retire. And so really, I think the thing that sticks out to me the most about that is like there needs to be more conversation around Social Security for young people. We got a lot of responses of people saying that, they're planning and saving for retirement in other ways and aren't even taking Social Security into account. A lot of people said they just don't know enough about Social Security to make like an educated choice about that. And so I think if we're able to work with AARP and other organizations to really educate young people about what they need to know now so that they're prepared when they retire, then we can dispel some of those myths that are out there.
Absolutely. And the other thing that we've learned as well is that people think that they could save, but then they don't. So that's important. And so many people rely on Social Security. I think I saw somewhere like 45% of people 65 and older, half their income comes from Social Security. That's significant. That's very significant. Frank, you represent the other end of that spectrum, but not so far down the other end of that spectrum. What are your folks telling you about the people, not your folks, but the people that you hang out with, your friends, your family? What are they
people that I talk to and discuss Social Security tell me that for some of them it would be devastating for them to not have any Social Security or to have a 20% cut in benefits. Others tell me, it wouldn't bankrupt them, but it would be something they hadn't planned for. They worked and paid into Social Security, and they were expecting to have that source of income. I talked to like folks like my dad and his peers, and they paid in. I paid in. It's just something that we expect to be there. It was a promise that was made to us, and I guess in the simplest terms, it's like saving money at a bank, and you put money in over a number of years, and you expect to withdraw some of that money at some point in time, and they tell you, well, you can't get your money.
Or you can only get 80%.
Or you can only get 80% of that.
No, I don't think so, right?
Yeah, so.
Yeah, exactly. So it can be devastating. Another statistic I want to share with you all is that 526,000 Michiganders, 65 or older, Social Security has actually kept them out of poverty through 2018 and 2020.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. So Vonda, let's say that I'm looking at Social Security and thinking I'm going to retire in 2034, which is when it will be reduced. What would you tell me right now if I were planning to do that? What should I do? What should I know about my planning? Should I plan for that 100%, or should I plan for the 80%, or should I not plan at all?
Well, the second question behind the first one is when should I start collecting? The second one is it going to be there for me? Obviously, because they have that fear. I always tell people, never make a decision that's going to affect you for the rest of your life based on fear, based on fear of the unknown. Don't file as soon as you possibly can at 62 because you don't think you're going to get it later, because you might have some regrets. So people always say I'm saying this because I work for Social Security, but I can confidently tell people that, we all heard how important Social Security is. They eliminate it. You're going to have over half of the elderly living in poverty. Changes need to be made. We don't know what those changes are, but I can confidently tell you that it's going to be there for you. So don't make a decision based on fear, because it's going to affect you for the rest of your life. This is your benefit for life. So make a decision based on what works for you and in your life situation at the time.
Then fight like heck to make certain you get what you've got coming.
That's right.
which is what people who are listening can do right now too. They can get involved to make certain that Social Security, and it's not something that someone's giving. It's not a handout. You've earned it. You've earned this money. So you want to make certain that that money is there. You have been all over the country, as you said, talking about Social Security. What's another myth that's out there that you'd like to dispel?
Well, I would like to answer that, but I want to ask Sadie and her network to explain to younger people, not only will the program be there if Congress takes the right actions over the next few years, it's there right now for them. It is insurance, as I said, FICA, Federal Insurance Contribution Act. If you are, for example, a 27-year-old worker with a spouse and 2 children, you have right now, never mind what happens when you're 67 or whenever you claim, you have almost $2 million in value of life and disability insurance. And a lot of younger people don't know that, and they aren't aware of it until something bad happens in the family, and someone might say, well, you ought to go to Social Security. They might be able to help you. So it's not just about retirement, it's about insurance for families, as I said, spouses and children. And the value of that is really incalculable. So I think it's an important point. Another myth that I think is one of the worst myths, besides it being broke, bankrupt, all of that, there's no money there. The money was stolen. The government stole the money. That's not true. Social Security has a trust fund. You know that. Almost $3 trillion in the trust fund now. By design, this money was put aside for the time that's coming now, when people will start drawing down on that, and in 2034, that $3 trillion will be gone. The money is not stolen. That money is invested in government bonds. They're rolled over regularly. They earn interest. It would not make sense to have $3 trillion under your mattress. I said that at a town hall meeting.
I'd sleep well, though. I'd sleep really well.
I said that at a town hall meeting, and I said, you wouldn't want $3 trillion. It was $2 trillion then. And a man in the back said, yes, I would. I'd want that under my mattress. But it earns interest. And I think the best way to kind of explain it, shed light on it, is at the beginning of COVID, when we had very high unemployment, not enough money was paid in payroll taxes to pay all the benefits that were due. Yet everybody got their benefits. Why? The trust fund bonds were there, they were drawn down on, and in fact, the size of the trust fund during that period actually grew because the interest that was paid on those bonds. So I would say that is at one of my top, at the top of my list of busting myths.
Is that, that the money is going to be there. It will be there. You just may not get all of it.
And to Frank's point, you raised such a good point. This is an earned benefit.
Yes.
You pay for it while you're working. This is not an entitlement. This is not welfare. It's an earned benefit, and it's there if you need it for disability, early death, for retirement. It's an earned benefit. Very important principle.
So why is only 80% of it going to be there?
Pardon me?
Why only 80% of it will be there?
Well, all of it needs to be there. I mean, 100%.
And so what do we do to make certain? I want all of it. What do we do to make certain?
I want all of it, and I want it there for all the beneficiaries. There are some very good proposals that are being considered in the Congress. We've supported some ways to bring more revenue into the program. I don't believe Social Security benefits are pretty modest. I'm not in favor of cutting benefits, cutting the cost of living adjustment, the COLA, raising the age. A lot of people talk about, well, let's fix Social Security by raising the age for receiving benefits. Well, we did that already. We did that and raised it to 67 from 65. And people say, well, people work longer, they live longer. It doesn't necessarily mean they work longer. And I always ask, where are all these jobs that, people that advocate raising the retirement age, you say you can work longer. Where are all these jobs for older people? I don't see them.
Yeah, good point. One of the things that I think you shared, or I heard someone say, is that Social Security has a different impact on people of color, and it affects them differently. Explain that.
Well, it has a more profound impact because communities of color historically have not been able to set aside enough money for retirement, less than others. They have not had pensions available to them, and those have been declining across the board, but especially in communities of color. So their reliance on Social Security because of those factors is even greater. And they rely also because of the kinds of jobs historically they've been engaged in, physically demanding jobs. Often they require the disability benefits more so than others.
Well, I think I read the average income from Social Security for Michiganders is $19,000 a year. I mean, that's not enough to live on, but it's certainly, you start taking it away, and it certainly is enough to put you into a poverty threshold. So we want to make certain that people pay attention and know what they need to do. We're going to talk about that. Vonda, people often think about Social Security as, when I get 67 or 65, but what if someone loses a spouse? What if someone, someone's married and their spouse is getting it, the spouse dies? What happens then?
Yeah, so we have the retirement benefit, of course, and the disability they referred to, but we also have survivor benefits. So when an individual who has worked and paid into the system passes away, we're going to look into eligible family members. Do they have any minor children under the age of 18? Do they have any children that they're older, but they were disabled before the age of 22. That's called a disabled adult child benefit. And do they have a surviving spouse or a surviving ex-spouse? So there's a lot of benefits there that could be payable if the individual that passed away worked and paid into the system long enough. So that's the key. You get this Social Security number, then you work and you pay that FICA tax under that Social Security number. A lot of people are grumbling about paying that FICA tax. Mm-hmm. However, it is insurance if you pass away, if you become disabled, or if you reach retirement age. So if that insured individual passes away and they have the minor children, the disabled adult children, or a surviving spouse, we will pay the survivor benefits. And then oftentimes, someone will be, say you're married, you're both getting your own retirement, and one of them passes away. We're going to immediately look into widow or widower's benefits for the survivor. Widows and widowers' benefits are payable as early as age 60. And then the older you are, the higher that benefit's going to be. So if you're at full retirement age when your spouse passes away, you get 100% of whatever they were getting at the time of their death. Yeah, so if my husband and I are both getting retirement, but his benefit's a little bit more than mine, we're now in our 80s and he passes away, I'm going to drop my retirement and I'm going to get 100% of what he was getting at the time of his death.
So what happens if someone is getting Social Security, then they decide to go back to work? what happens to the Social Security?
Well, it just depends. I don't have a good answer for everything, but if they're at full retirement age or older, they can make as much money as they want and they can get Social Security at the same time. So whether they're getting retirement or that survivor benefit, if they're full retirement age, go back to work, make as much as you want, nothing's going to happen to your benefits. But if they're under full retirement age, then we have a limit, and this year it's $21,240. If they make over that, we do withhold $1 for every $2 that they make over the limit.
Is there a maximum amount that people can earn with Social Security? What's the max?
There is a maximum amount. I'm not sure how much that amount is, but the maximum benefit today is a little over $3,600 a month.
Okay, great. So that's significant
Yes.
to anybody. That's very significant. Frank, what's your greatest concern about Social Security? If you just had one thing that you're really concerned about, if people go from 100% to 80%, what's the greatest concern?
How that will impact their lives and what they plan for. I'm expecting 100% of something, and then I turn 70 or 2034, I find out that I'm only going to get 80% of it. It will have a huge impact on how I live, how I travel, just basic expenses. It's an unplanned cut that happens in 2034 that I haven't planned for, and maybe I should be planning for, thinking about it now in case that
Vonda
cut.
said no. What we need to do is act to make certain that it's there. That's what we need to do. Look at that QR code, scan that QR code, take action. Don't sit here, get all this great information, go, oh, I hope it's going to be there. You got to do something. You got to get involved, make the pledge, contact your Congress, etc. Have you ever been in this place before, Social Security, not you, where we were concerned about the cuts for Social Security? That happened a while back, didn't it? Where there was...
Well, in the early 80s, the trust fund, which now we talked about is going to be drawn down in 2034, will be zero and would lead to these cuts. In the early 80s, the Congress was looking at a scenario of 6 months, not 11 years, but 6 months before the trust fund at the time would be drawn down and there would have to be cuts in Social Security benefits. That never happened because, and I don't think it'll happen again.
Let's hope not.
No,
6 months.
I don't think it'll happen again. We don't want to wait till 2033,
right?
Because then it gets dicey, and you have to make some dramatic changes in terms of the revenue flow, perhaps the benefits. So we don't want to wait till that point. But there is plenty of time before we get to 6 months out to make some reasonable changes. And I was listening to Frank talk about how having a 20% cut would impact beneficiaries. Think about, we all know Social Security has a COLA, right? A cost of living adjustment. The last couple of years it's been really high because of high inflation. Hasn't made up for all those years when I think it was less than it should have been. But in 3 of the last 11 or 12 years, the COLA was zero. And we got an earful from our members, and I'm sure you did from the AARP membership, that the COLA was zero because they know their cost of living went up those years. So imagine if the reaction we got when the COLA was zero, if beneficiaries were told, well, you're not only going to not get a COLA, we're going to cut your benefits by 20%. That is not going to happen.
No. And the red shirts in this audience, the AARP volunteers that are in this audience that we're going to hear from in just a moment, they're not going to let that happen.
No, they're not going to let that happen. And they shouldn't.
We're not going to let that happen. What's another myth buster?
Well, there are so many. How long do we have?
Not long enough, but we're going to start acting after this program.
A couple quick ones. Social Security is an entitlement. It's not. We talked about that. It's an earned benefit. It's not welfare. And we don't want to turn it into we don't want it to be turned into welfare by means testing it. There is not the kind of support for welfare programs as there is for Social Security. I've met a lot of Social Security beneficiaries, never met a single one who's ashamed to be on Social Security, and I've never met a person proud to be on welfare. So we don't want the program to become a welfare program. Illegal aliens are stealing our Social Security. Not true. There are cases where undocumented workers will somehow get a Social Security number, and you know this, and will to get a job. FICA taxes are withheld by their employer, but they can never claim because they don't have a legitimate number. So the opposite is true. Undocumented workers probably, because of what I just said, benefit the Social Security program. They pay in, but they can't collect benefits because they don't have a legitimate number. Members of Congress don't pay into Social Security. Not true. Members of Congress do pay into Social Security. I could go on and on.
So what's the hesitancy right now for Congress to act? Because it's not imminent, it's not right here, but
I don't think it's going to happen this Congress. I think if there's any change, it will probably take place at the beginning of a Congress before the next election, and hopefully after we get past November of 2024, there'll be enough courage. You need political courage to make the kinds of changes that are necessary.
And that's why that's something or a place where everybody can get involved. Just make certain that whoever you vote for, we're nonpartisan, we don't have a PAC, but just make certain that whoever you vote for, that they're going to work to make certain that Social Security that you've earned is there for you.
I have a suggestion. I meet a lot of people, and when they find out what I do, that I'm with the Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare, invariably they say, I'm for that.
Yeah.
That's not good enough. When you go to town hall meetings, when you're a member of Congress or a candidate for Congress has town hall meetings, campaign events, and you ask them about Social Security, just saying I'm for that is not good enough. Where are you on raising the retirement age? You want to have clear answers. Where are you on means testing the program? Where are you on cutting the cost of living adjustment? And insist that you get answers, not just platitudes like, I'm for that.
That is an excellent point, because every single person running will say, I'm for that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to say, I'm not for Social Security, because they know that those who are 60 and older, that would not be
Well,
what
if they say that, they're going to be former members, right?
So we're going to take some, exactly, former members. So we're going to take some questions, some Q&A from our audience. Frank, thank you so much for being with us. And Sadie, thank you for sharing your story. We'll continue to listen. We'll continue to learn together. And we'll continue to work together to make certain Social Security here today, Social Security here tomorrow. Thank you. We're going to take some Q&A. So before that, we're going to ask you a question. So there's a question coming up right now. Please see if you can answer that question. And then we'll be right back with Q&A from the audience.
By way of Social Security, how much money is injected into our state's economy each year? Social Security injects more than $40.2 billion into Michigan's economy every year.
So for this portion of our program, we are taking questions from our audience. And first question goes to you, Max. And the question is from Chris from East Lansing. And Chris wants to know, will the legislature remove the income limits on Social Security taxes to ensure solvency of the fund?
Well, I don't think the Congress is going to remove the limit altogether. And it's the cap on wages subject to the payroll tax changes a little bit every year. It's $160,200 this year. It'll probably change again in the beginning of next year. I don't think there's the appetite in the Congress to eliminate it altogether. I do think it's reasonable to explore some changes that would keep the cap at what it is, but begin collecting payroll taxes at another amount, $400,000 in wages or $500,000. That protects people in between that members of Congress may feel shouldn't be subject to more tax. But it brings in more revenue. It would extend the solvency of the Social Security program and maybe provide enough money to improve some of the benefits that currently exist.
Excellent. And we say extend the solvency for about how long?
It depends on what, if we're talking about 400,000 or 500, what benefits are added. There are proposals that I've seen in the past that would extend it by 5 years, some to 10 or 15 or 20 years. But that would give the Congress some time to explore some other long-term changes.
Chris, thank you for that question. Also, don't forget that QR code on your TV screen. Pull out your cell phone and make certain that you get more information by just scanning that QR code. Vonda, question from Barb from Muskegon. If I take Social Security on my ex-husband's Ernie at the age of 62, can I switch and take my Social Security earnings at age 70?
Well, that is also a very common question that we get all the time. It's a strategy that used to work and it doesn't any longer. You do have to be born before January 2nd, 1954 to be able to do what Barb was alluding to, meaning file on your spouse or ex-spouse and then switch to your own later. You can't do that any longer. Now, if you were born after January 2nd, 1954, you have to file for all benefits that you're due, which means if you have 40 credits, meaning you've worked and paid into the system long enough to be insured, you must file on your own retirement record first, and then we'll look into additional spouses or divorced spouses benefits second. But you have to do that retirement piece first. And your own full benefit has to be less than half of theirs in order for you to be able to get additional on their record.
Good question. Okay, Max, Margot from Montague wants to know, will there be any assurance against privatizing Social Security funding, and if so, what are they?
I don't think there's any assurance against privatizing. We all remember President Bush's effort to privatize the program. In fact, we were sitting in our conference room in our office the day after President Bush was reelected. I'll never forget this. He came to the podium and he said, "I have earned political capital and I'm going to use that to privatize Social Security." Well, Paula, we about fell out of our chairs. We couldn't believe this. This was his top priority. And he embarked on a tour around the country, 30 town hall meetings in 30 days. We followed him. We didn't have Air Force One, but we followed him as best we could. And that proposal failed. Couldn't even get a vote in the Congress to privatize the program. But it's still out there. People talk about it as a way to extend the solvency, the life of the program, and we're totally against that. But we have to be aware of it, the effort.
Absolutely. And you hear that a lot, that it's going to be privatized or people want it privatized. Vonda, Lauren from Grayling wants to know, do required attributions from traditional IRA accounts count toward income?
Yep, that's an excellent question. So when somebody is getting a benefit before their full retirement age, as we mentioned earlier, they have earnings limits. This year it's $21,240, but that's strictly earned income. That means they can go out and get a job, work for wages or self-employment, and they can make $21,240. We don't care about their other income. We don't care about their pensions, IRA, 401k, dividend, interest, income. None of that counts as earned income in that limit of $21,240.
Thank you. Maxine from Lansing wants to know, what legislative body or where is it written that anyone has the authority or the power to deduct 20% of my earned income?
Well, they don't. They don't have that, and as I've said many times, I don't think I can't. I know a lot of members of Congress. I've met a lot over time. Nobody is going to be able to stand up and before constituents and voters and say, "I'm for cutting Social Security by 20%." That's not going to happen.
Yeah, and we're going to make certain that doesn't happen. Dennis from Rochester would like to know if you were married over 10 years to each spouse and then divorced multiple times. Here, you read it.
Oh, I know exactly. So he's basically saying, let's say I have two ex-spouses out there and I was married to both of them for over 10 years and one of them passes away, or maybe both of them has since passed away. What do I do? What benefits do I qualify for? And that is also a very common question. So even though I have two exes out there and I was married to both of them for over 10 years, and that's the duration of marriage requirement for divorce benefits, is you must be married for at least 10 years prior to the divorce. So I have two of them, two candidates, if you will. That doesn't sound right, but and they're both passed. What do I do? Well, I would file on the higher of the two. If one of them was deceased and one of them was living, I would probably file for survivor benefits because, as I mentioned earlier, you get 100% when they're deceased. If my second ex-husband has now passed away, then I could switch over to his record if it's going to be more money, but I don't collect on both at the same time. It doesn't work that way.
Thank you. Sorry, Dennis. All right. The next question, Max, for you, from Dave from Brighton, and he would like to know what's the most viable alternative to shoring up Social Security and Medicare?
The most viable
alternative.
Well, I think it's going to probably require some combination of options. I do believe, as I said earlier, that bringing more revenue into the program is an important piece of it. I think that brings fairness into the program. We talked about adjusting the cap on wages subject to payroll tax. There are also discussions happening in Washington about placing other kinds of income, unearned income, subject to payroll tax, not just wages, but other kinds of income that high earners. It used to be that years ago, about over 91% of wages were subject to payroll tax. Now it's about 80. Why? High income earners, the disparity has grown so dramatically between the average wage earner and the very high income wage earner, and the way that they get paid, not just in wages. So I think there's a lot of merit to looking at, as one option is to explore some other avenues for bringing more revenue into the program. And I think it's an important option.
Excellent. Thank you. Next question is Joy from Grand Rapids. It seems the public's concern about Social Security feeds into a general distrust of the government. Do you believe that's the case?
Well, I think some of the myths that I've been talking about, it does do exactly that. It undermines confidence in the Social Security program. And unfortunately, these myths have really taken hold, especially among younger people. They've been bombarded by these messages that the program is bankrupt, it won't be there, they stole the money, all of that stuff. So that, I've seen surveys where younger people feel they're more likely to see a UFO than to ever get a Social Security check, or are more likely to encounter Bigfoot than to ever get a Social Security check. So that background has undermined support for the program.
And we hear that from the young people that we talk to across the state as well. They just want their money now because they don't believe it's going to be there for them later. But as you so eloquently pointed out earlier, it's not just about retirement. It's also about health care and other benefits that you receive from Social Security. Vonda, I'll save Annie Mae's question a little bit later, but another question from Jeff from Escanaba. Will you discuss the impact of working and getting Social Security?
Well, You know, I could take that question two different ways. The impact of working in Social Security is that the more you make, the higher your benefit will be. So that's one end of it, because your monthly retirement benefit or disability or that survivor benefit is 100% based on one's work record. And that's why we always encourage people to, you know, go to ssa.gov, create that My Social Security account, because now you can access your work record. You need to make sure it's accurate. And you don't want to check it when you're in your 60s and find out that a year is missing 20 years ago. So the impact of work when we're at our working years is that you're going to increase your benefit the more you make, the more you work. But his question is probably related to the impact of work on your Social Security benefits, and we have covered that already. You can make as much as you want once you obtain full retirement age, but prior to full retirement age, there are limits. And in 2023, it's $21,240. We do withhold $1 for every $2 that you make over that limit, and we would withhold it from future benefits.
Thank you for that, and thank you for that question. Mark from Lansing, I like this question. Do you expect proposals to cut Social Security and or Medicare will be in play every time there's discussion about the debt ceiling?
Well, they shouldn't be. And you know, this last time, you remember I don't know if you followed the debt ceiling debate that took place in Washington, got right up to the edge of default, and that was taken off the table. I mean, by both political parties. The Social Security was taken off the table, but you know, do I worry about it being put back on the table? Yeah, I do.
And you made a good point too, that you want to make certain that we start now talking about what the solution's going to be so people can get involved. And it's not just about 2034, but we don't want to wait 6 months before,
right,
like they did previously.
Well, you know, the longer we wait to make changes to ensure the long-term solvency beyond 2034, way beyond it, the more dramatic you'll have to cover more ground in a shorter period of time. So it would make sense in the next couple of years to address that in a comprehensive way.
And that's what Max and Vonda, well, maybe not so much Vonda because she works for Social Security, but what Max was saying before is that don't just ask the elected officials or those candidates, do you support Social Security? Because no one in their right mind will say no. We want to ask them, what's the plan? What do you do? Get specific about. Is it raising the debt ceiling? Is it raising, I'm sorry, not the debt ceiling, raising the age, the caps? What is it specifically that you support? And that gets into the question that I kind of hesitated to ask. Annie Mae is asking, I think this one might be for me. What are the plans to have the voice of Social Security solvency come from younger people? And I think we heard today about Sadie and other folks. We need to make certain that it's not just older, Social Security is not just for older adults, it's for the children, for your grandchildren, it's for other people as well. So that's part of the messaging that needs to be articulated as we talk about Social Security. Any other comments on that?
I mean, I actually have a personal story about that I can relate to. Is my 27-year-old daughter was just diagnosed with cancer, and she was a teacher for 3 years and unable to work any longer. She's stage 4. And you know, I got to the point where I had to tell her, you know, you need to file for Social Security disability. And she's gone to my speeches before. I thought she knew all about Social Security, but she's like, I thought that was just for retirees. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't done my job with her. So she is a perfect example. You know, she was a teacher 3 years, and they don't know what they would do without that monthly disability benefit. So sad story, but also a good story for me to share with people, because I've seen it firsthand, the impact that it has on a family. You know, it's a devastating thing that they're experiencing, but it's also something that they can't imagine life without. And then her Medicare just kicked in a few months ago, and she's like, I don't know what I would have done without Medicare, because she lost her health insurance as well. So it is for young people. Do we think that it's going to happen to us? Absolutely not. Nobody ever thinks it's going to happen to them. But when it does, man, Social Security is amazing.
That's an excellent story. Thank you for sharing that. And our thoughts and prayers are with your daughter as well. But you live and breathe Social Security all the time. But for that firsthand personal knowledge of what it can do, not for someone 60, 65 and older, but for young people, I think that answers the question quite explicitly. Thank you for that. Dennis from Rochester would like to know what can be done to ensure cost of living increases for Social Security recipients.
That's really a good question, but Vonda's story is so compelling. And I just remember when President Roosevelt signed the Social Security Act, you remember this phrase, to protect Americans against the hazards and vicissitudes of life. And we don't know what's going to happen, but the program has been there for over 85 years. The COLA, the cost of living adjustment, it's really important. This Social Security is the only retirement program that has a built-in inflation protection, a cost of living adjustment. It's not adequate, in my opinion. It's been there as a formula since the mid-1970s. I think the formula is flawed. The way the COLA is calculated is not accurate. Right now, the COLA, it's been really great the last couple of years, 7-8%, but it hasn't made up for all those years where it was only 1 or 2% or zero. And so what we support is looking at how inflation impacts an older person. The point of a COLA is for your Social Security check to keep up with inflation as it affects you, not a wage earner. And the current formula looks at how inflation impacts the goods and services that an urban wage earner relies on, different from what an older person is, someone on Social Security. So the term of art is called a consumer price index for the elderly. Look at what inflation is doing to the buying power of someone who's on Social Security. That would give you a slightly larger COLA, and over time it's cumulative, it's compounded, and it would have a huge impact over time.
And that's just so important. And the folks, again, we've got about a minute and a half left. Look at the QR code, scan that QR code, get some additional information on there. And I'm going to ask both Max and Vonda to give us one last tip before we leave the program. But thank you for watching. Thank you to our studio audience here. And please get involved, get engaged. Don't just receive this information, hear it, and not do anything, but contact your elected officials, let them know this is important. But more importantly, to Max's point, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? How are you going to fix this to make certain that I get all of my income? In the minute or so that we've got left, Vonda, what are some parting words that you have for folks?
I would recommend that anyone age 18 and older create a My Social Security account. Don't wait. Do it now, because that's your in to your record. You need to understand what Social Security is all about. So that's your first step. Go to ssa.gov, create a My Social Security account. Now you can look at your Social Security statement anytime you want. Look at your estimates for retirement, disability, survivors. Check out that earnings record. Make sure your wages are posted accurately, and play around with the calculators to see what you could potentially get at retirement. But don't wait until you're retirement age. Anyone 18 and older can create that account, so we encourage individuals to do it as soon as they turn 18 and check out what Social Security is all about.
Thank you. Max, we've got 30 seconds left.
My tip, especially since I only have 30 seconds, listen to what Paula just said. Because what she just said is the right approach. Challenge public officials, candidates with specifics, and don't just walk away with platitudes and empty promises.
And we have right there on our website a place that you can go if you want to get involved, if you want to become an advocate, if you want to volunteer. This is the time to do that. Let's not wait till 2033 to do that. Max, thank you so much for being here. We've got national, we've got state, we're rocking and rolling in here. Now it's your turn. Let's rock and roll together. Thank you so much for watching AARP, Real Possibilities. You received a lot of information today. Please check out our website that's listed on the screen and share this information with others. And get involved. Thank you for watching AARP Real Possibilities.